Alright, because we inherited a towel warmer, I went ahead and started off by putting nice warm towels on Jet so that we can start to relax these muscles. Just doing kind of light touch here. As I remove this, got some lovely coconut oil here. And it's gone through the microwave for about 2 minutes, and I'm just going to be doing some very light touch just to move that around, warm up that tissue. And I'm going to be thinking about using different segments for this massage, right? So right now I'm just kind of warming up this upper back, but in a moment I'm going to start focusing on different segments. And you see as I'm pushing out, I'm going a little bit deeper each time, and I'm actually grabbing his lats a little bit here as I come through the armpits, very nice and gently, a little bit deeper each time. Notice that I'm not trying to use my thumbs or my fingers too much. I'm actually grouping my fingers together and making a nice little pause here. And I've noticed that I'm moving a little bit fast. As I start going deeper, I want to start focusing on going a little bit slower and paying attention to the way that the muscles move. So looking at anatomy can help prepare you to do massage a little bit better. Right? So this muscle that I'm grabbing up here is the upper trapezius, and a little bit here on the neck for the levator scap. That comes right there and attaches down here in the scapula. You might feel in this area something that feels a little bit like a knot, but that's not a knot. It's actually where the levator scap goes over the trapezius muscle here. And I'm noticing that Jet's tensing up a little bit as I pull down here along his trapezial line. So I'm just going to relax out the trapezius muscle here. So this muscle makes a little diamond shape here, right? Out. And then down here. Generally speaking, most people are overactive in their levator scap and trapezius. So now that I'm starting to go a little bit deeper here, I'm going to hang off this muscle a little bit. And it's okay if I don't get it completely relaxed here. I'm going to have plenty of opportunity to work on it as I move along. And I also find that a lot of these upper superior to the scapula muscles are a little bit easier to attack when he is prone rather than supine. I said that backwards, but you know. All right. So right in here where my thumbs are, this is the rhomboid area. A lot of people have a tendency to be a little bit sore in that area. And I'm moving along. When I'm working on these erector spinae, I don't want to be too close to the bony tissue here, so I don't want to be on this side of the lump. I actually want to be kind of square on the lump. And think about elongating this muscle. Creating some stretch here. Now I'm being very careful and slow here because I don't want to cause him to tense up by going too deep too fast. If I do feel that I went deep and then he tensed up a little bit, then I need to pause in that place and wait for him to chill out a little bit. And oftentimes when that happens, I will cue him by taking a deep breath in through my nose. Now right in here, there's this little bridge here of the upper rhomboid that can get a little bit snappy when you go over that. And when you go over that muscle, that's not a knot, that's just the way that those fibers lie. So I when I get into this deep technique here in a second using my forearm, I want to be careful to not stretch it too much and snap it. So when I put my hand out like this, I want to be relatively limp wristed with this. I'm not putting too much pressure in to my elbow. I'm definitely not putting pressure into his spine. If anything, I'm aiming for this little ridge right here. Usually give about 2 or 3 passes here. I felt that I was putting too much pressure towards my elbow, so I'm putting more weight down by my wrist here. Careful not to catch that scapula. And one more. This is going to be the deepest one, so I've kind of graduated my pressure up. A little bit deeper in here. Now that I've kind of warmed up this tissue, I'm actually going to grab this muscle and hang on it a little bit. I'm not using my arm strength. I'm just sinking my hips back into that a little bit. Now I'm going to give him a little bit of a reach around here. And I'm actually going into that pectoral muscle now. And it's very important that that Jet's being active about this, in that a lot of times people will either tense up or they'll try to lift themselves up. He's actually just trying his best, which goes against his natural instinct to just be a corpse. Just be complete limp meat here and let me use his weight. Because I'm pulling on the massage table right now, I'm bracing my knee up against this side of the table so that he doesn't fall over. And I get a little bit into his tricep here. And I have to be careful because I have not warmed up this tissue yet. Right? All my warm-up stuff happened over here, right? So get into this tricep tissue. I'm starting off pretty light. And Jet's pretty good about letting me know when something's too deep, too fast. He makes all kinds of funny noises when I heard him. So for today, for the sake of demonstration, I'm not going to do that. Now if I want to get deeper and not push him in the table, you see I'm going to support his elbow here so I don't accidentally push him into hyperextension. I'm just going to support that. There he goes. Again, going deep into these forms a little bit. Just because I've got pretty good access to this side, since he's face down. We'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit. I'm going back to my warm-up just a little bit because I'm going to be switching sides here. And I haven't gotten so far ahead of myself that there's going to be a big variance between the left side and the right side as far as my technique goes. And I'm just doing very light right now, trying to warm up that tissue using friction. And I need to make sure that as I'm planning on going deeper here, then I need to start slowing down my technique a little bit. Feeling a bit of a dry spot. There we go. I don't want to use too much lotion or oil or whatever my medium is here, because I don't want to be too slippery and not have any grip on the skin. Now I'm going to start listening for his breathing patterns. And I'm going to try to line up my breathing with his. Elongating this trapezius and into the levator scalp. I know it needs some extra love. We will get to it later. I do feel a little bit of a blurble right here. I'll spend a little bit of extra time on here. Realizing that I missed his external rotators on both sides, I'm just going to hit them both here. I am using my thumbs right now, but I want to do that very sparingly because the thumbs don't have a lot of strength to them, and I can actually really fuck up my hands really fast. If I'm too dependent on those. Relatively light pass. A little bit heavier. Because I started so late on that one, the first one, I'm probably going to end up doing 4, but that's okay. I'm using both hands, so you're relatively limp here. Very, very slow. This is very deep, right? I wanted to give him time to adjust. A little bit, give it a nice little stretch. Reach around. Being very careful of his nipple on this side. I want to snag that or scratch it, but I am hanging on that pectoral a little bit. Getting some of that serratus anterior, some of those obliques here. That weight, and you can do both sides here. Get that anterior deltoid while you're at it. Just let that sink right into that. Again, this muscle is not warmed up. As I go deeper, I'll slow down my technique. How are you doing, honey? Again, I'm supporting this elbow so I don't hyperextend it. As I'm going deeper, my speed has slowed down significantly. I'm just going really deep right now. I want him to be able to relax into that. And if I feel him tense up, I'm going to pause. And wait for that muscle to relax underneath my hand. And I will mention that knots are a controversial term in massage. There is no scientific data to suggest that they exist. Adhesions, however, do. And that's where two muscles get stuck to one another and they develop scar tissue. So I'm going to move my focus a little bit lower. Again, I can utilize his body weight and get into his obliques here. Open up, getting into those lats. So this might be hard to see because we have to keep this YouTube friendly, but I'm actually getting to the opposite side of the iliac crest here and getting this insertion here. I'm actually going to do that down here, so I'm going to reveal this a little bit. Boom. So I am getting right here along the TFL, so you've got a muscle here that feeds into your iliotibial band and comes down towards your knee. I'm just going to hang off that muscle a little bit. Just get it to release. This is a muscle that tends to be tight on a lot of people. And if you're going with somebody that's you're not quite comfortable with right away, this might not be the best technique because obviously I'm getting pretty close to his junk here. I'm really just focusing on that muscle. Alright. Sit up here for a moment so I can move his leg up. So, I'm picking up a limb. You want to support it completely. You don't want to make him feel like he can fall at any point in time because then he'll tense up. So, the gluteus, let's put that in a less than comfortable position, which is a bigger bed. Anyways, And it attaches all the way along the iliac crest down into the sacrum and feeds into the iliotibial band. A lot of times when people have iliotibial issues, it's either going to be the TFL or the glutes that need releasing. And we can sometimes tell because of the movement dysfunctions that we see, especially in a squat assessment. So not all of the glutes do the same function, right? So the glute maximus is mostly for abduction, extension, and external rotation, the pointing of the knee outward, right? Where the glute medius does both internal and external rotation of the hip, and the glute minimus actually does internal rotation of the hip. So you see, I usually find moving out and down from the sacrum down towards the anterior side, that's where I usually feel glute massage is the best. I've been told that you can do pretty much anything in the glute and it'll feel good. That's not true. You go the wrong way with it. It can feel tearing. It can feel very uncomfortable. So slow down a little bit here. Now when I come down here into the thigh, I'm going to be focusing mostly on both sides of the IT band, but not on the IT band itself. So I'm getting that vastus lateralis, these hamstring muscles right here on the lateral side. I'm not too focused on getting onto the IT band. The IT band, if it is tight, doesn't seem to respond particularly well to pressure, especially because it's just this big ass tendon. So there's not going to be a lot of adhesion that's going on in there, right? So if we need to loosen up this lateral side, then we are going to do it on these lateral musculatures. And since I've got a pretty clear path here to this perineal longus, that is this muscle right here alongside the calf, I'm going to go ahead and hit it here. Again, just like the IT band, this can feel like a very tight muscle if you get into it too deep, so we don't tend to talk about it much. So, very slow with my movements here. And again, now allow me to move the leg. I want to make sure that it feels supported, like he's not going to get dropped. And let's go ahead, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we'll go ahead and do the other side. Again, remember we started here at the oblique system. We get into those obliques. If I can, you can get into, like if you feel along the iliac crest and we get closer to his his abdominal line, if I push down into that, I can actually get into his hip flexors, so right here, you can't see where I'm putting my fingers, but right here at the top of his iliac crest, there is his iliacus here, and right here along the spine is where his iliopsoas originate. And a lot of times when somebody has low back pain, it's those muscles that tend to be tight. And for ethical reasons, I am not going to go into how to do the active release therapy on that. It's one of those things I think you have to feel it a few times on yourself and should have a certain degree of training before you really get into that too much. I'm just going to move this to get out of the way. Again, I'm going to support and support, create that external rotation. And I'm going to set this down, hopefully in a comfortable way. Again, personally, I actually like this section of the glute is right here at the origin, going along that. That's usually where I feel like, oh my god, this is beautiful. Right? Now I should mention that in here about where my thumb is where the sciatic nerve kind of runs through here. And if I were to put a lot of pressure down in that spot, I might get a yelp from Jet. And in here, in that area, you do have the piriformis. And if you do find that if somebody does have sciatica, it's probably better to stretch it out rather than to try to massage it out too much. Because putting like that direct pressure right on the sciatic nerve can just really, really irritate that nerve and cause more problems. So we're going to go ahead and stay off of that. And since I've got that lovely access to the sides of these muscles, I'm going to go ahead and hit them now. Again, reminding myself, because I was a little bit deep on the other side, to take my time. I'm not going to, you see that he's got this big ass bruise right here? I don't know where that came from. I probably bit him at some point in time, it was hilarious. But I don't really want to put a lot of pressure on that spot. It's already inflamed, it's got blood vessels that are irritated. So I'm going to try to stay off of that and go around it a little bit. And you see I'm avoiding that bruise. You see my fingers are locking up because I've used a lot of dependency on my fingertips. And that's just going to make this. You lock up. So again, take care of your hands. Lying a little bit more on my palm. Slowly here because I'm going deeper on this. And I'm paying attention to the Jet's breath. If I hear him suddenly slurp in a big breath or something like that, that means I've gone too deep too fast. Fortunately, I haven't run into that yet. Again, I'm moving over here. Now, this might not actually work because Jet's fairly short here, so yeah, I don't like it as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a foam roller under Jet's ankles here. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I'm not putting too much strain onto his knees. I'm going to go up the hamstring here. Now, as I'm going through the hamstrings, I can feel like if I were to go like a blade here, I might actually be able to knife in between the hamstring muscles, right down here in the middle. And he just had like this big twitch that just went up his butt, which is again a signal that I went too deep too fast or I went into some place that's uncomfortable. The hamstring muscles actually are going to be either side of that midline, right? going to save my fingers, and I'm going to follow that either side of the midline, pull back, putting weight in my palms as I come up, and I grip and pull back. Use your knuckles. Okay, that was a bit fast, so I can feel him kind of adapting. So if I want to go deep like this, and I do feel that twitching, take a deep breath in, pause, maybe let up a little bit, wait for that twitching to kind of subside a little bit, and then go a little bit deeper. And I can actually feel there's some extra twitching here on the medial side here. And tap it that time. Again, when I'm using my body weight and using this forearm technique, I want to be very mindful of how much weight I'm putting into there. Right. That was a lighter pass, a little bit heavier. I can even go in here in the middle and really lengthen that muscle by going in opposite directions here. Very nice. So this is instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. And so I feel like right there-ish, I'm starting to get some ropiness. So a little bit more lubrication there. And I don't need to go super deep with this. Just trying to break up a little bit of that fascial tissue. I'm seeing a little bit on the medial side. This might explain why earlier I was seeing, because it's right along here. When Jet was doing a squat, there was a little bit of adduction happening here on this side. This might be a little bit of that tightness. You might not get all the ropiness out in a single setting. It's a little bit better now. And you might start seeing a little bit of red freckles starting to appear here. That's called a petechia. It is a breaking open of the capillaries. It's not necessarily what we're looking for. I'm not seeing a lot of it right now, but it's just one of those things that can happen with this technique. Now, there is a muscle right here that attaches diagonally here. I have to remember which diagonal it goes on. This little muscle here is called your popliteus. A lot of times when people experience knee pain, it can be tension and issues here in the popliteus. So I'm just going to lengthen that muscle out just a little bit. This little guy that it has a lot of responsibility here. It's meant to help the rotation of the lower leg and control that rotation. So if it's, we have this idea that if you have a muscle imbalance, it's because one muscle is stronger than another, but a lot of times it's because the muscle is tighter than another one. And if a muscle is tight, it is oftentimes overworked and gets weaker. Or it's a weak muscle that's trying to overcome much larger muscles, right? So we want to help that muscle heal, reduce inflammation to that muscle, to help it be able to stabilize better. Now, Jet generally does have tight calves from working in a restaurant all the time. So we're going to be a little bit mean here in a minute to kind of try to loosen those up. When he squats, he has a tendency to have his foot turn out too much, and it ratchets out, which really implies that there is some tightness, particularly along this lateral side of his gastrocnemius and soleus. So I'm try to work that out a little bit. Now, if you have ability to get curved cups, those will work better for this. I might not even be able to get this. So I don't want to have it too tight. It might be, there we go. Now, one thing I'm looking for here is for a dimple in here. So let's go with the slightly smaller one. Sometimes you can see that the fascial tissue will cause this little U in the muscle. And that would be something that we would want to work out. A lot of times when you do cupping, you will see a lot of bruising in that area. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've done a good job or that the cupping was successful. It just means that some capillary is ruptured. So it's not necessarily the objective. So just like with the soft tissue mobilization, right? Not trying to get like super deep with this. I'm not trying to cut into him. Just trying to loosen up this lateral gastroc a little bit. Still doing all right there, Jet? Those weren't words.
Yeah, I'm fine.
A little bit too much oil here. I'm going to try to move it down into the calf a bit. So this side I'm feeling that kind of ropiness a little bit higher right here, so round it out. Little tool here.
I'll actually cover up that bruise a little bit just to remind myself not to go straight on it. And I want to really kind of feel this tool will actually kind of amplify inconsistencies. So right there in that muscle where I can feel there's a little bit of an adhesion there.
Another technique I'm going to try here is I'm going to come right in here, put some pressure directly on that spot. So it's just my index finger that I'm putting all that pressure in. So I'm going to take the pressure off, and I'm going to close up this angle a little bit. Right there on the muscle. Let's see if I can find that again. Right there. So I'm letting that hamstring move under my thumb here. That's way better. I can feel that kind of release there. See there? I mean, maybe you can see it from your angle because of the towel, but his glute tensed up when I leaned into him, so I paused. Okay, there was a little twitch there. Okay. So he's way tighter on this side than he was on the other. Especially around that lateral side. So I'm putting a lot more of my weight into that elbow than my wrist. Yeah, right around that place. Right there is where I'm seeing that tension. So I let off my weight, back just to here. There. So let my weight off, come back just to here so I can put pressure into it. Move the foam roll so I can actually get more range of motion here. That popliteus. It's a little tiny little guy, so just give it some nice gentle love in here. I can use my thumbs because I'm not going terribly deep with this. And I'm reminding myself that we have not worked on this calf yet, so I'm going to be focusing on warming up this tissue before I go deep. Taking my time trying to feel for inconsistencies in the muscle. Now I'm starting to go pretty deep, so I'm watching how that muscle reacts to that. So far, so good. Basic superficial breaking up that scar tissue. So right here. That bear with this side. So this one's a little bit tighter than the other one. So you see that we don't have like a nice round dome shape. We actually kind of dimple in here on this side and flatten out. So a little bit deeper on that. So this is probably going to actually change the way that Jet moves a little bit, because we're doing a severe intervention here on the lateral calf. So I'm doing this based on a movement observation and also looking at how the tissue gets sucked up into the cup. And I can see where it's just kind of dippling in right along this line here. There's a little bit of roughness down here still, but it's a lot smoother on the top side here, which is mainly where I was focusing. Yeah, not surprising I'm not finding a whole lot on that medial side.